Welcome to the episode of Conquer the Course, your podcast getting you ready for any and all things that you're going to take on race day. We break it down race by race. This specific episode, we are conquering Ironman 70.3 Oceanside. With me once again is Coach Rob Dallimore. Coach, it's been a few weeks since we've been on. How you doing?
Jim, I missed you, mate. It's been a while, but here we come up for the big races. So here we are.
That's it, the big
Yeah.
races. And, I'll call this a big race. It's sold out, 3,000 athletes. I've done this race probably 9 times, many different iterations of the course. That being said, it's been pretty much the same course the whole time. So, so
Mm.
I know the course like the back of my hand. And I don't think you've ever raced Oceanside, have you?
No, I've always wanted to. Yeah, it's a race that it's a funny time of the calendar for Southern Hemisphere athletes. It's we're sort of at the end of our tri season, and to pull off another big race would be a big ask for Kiwis and Aussies. But we always sit back and watch this race because it's the first one of the big northern hemisphere races. So
Yeah,
you get a good indicator of who's racing well,
they
who's
used
going
to
good.
call it the Kona of the spring over here because it would be all the heavy hitters come out. Everybody gets excited for the 70.3 World Championships of the spring because all the heavy hitters come out as the first big race of the season. So we would always get Jan out here back in the day. Craig Alexander and Maka would come out. So it was always a big shindig. And I think this was my
Yeah.
first 70.3 I ever raced back in 2005. So way back. That was the
Oh,
first one. I moved out to California a month later. I raced Oceanside, and it put fear in my bones because it's a challenging course. It's
what
challenging,
time
and
did you do? Can you
the
remember?
first time I probably was around 5 hours, somewhere in there, five something.
Nice,
I was
nice.
green, baby. I was green. I just taken up triathlon about a month and a half, 2 months earlier. So then I went and did
Brilliant.
wildflower on top of that one, and yeah, my
Oh,
first two half Ironmans were beasts. So that was
two of the
a good
best.
welcome to the sport. But in the years since, like I said, I've raced it probably 9, 10 times. I think my best on the course is 4:08. Last year I raced it for 20, something like that. Won the age group by 30 minutes or something. But
Wow, nice.
it's an interesting course. There's a lot of takeaways, and if you aren't familiar with it, majority of the ride is actually done on Camp Pendleton, which is a Marine base down
Mm.
in the San Diego County area. So you're not able to recon the course at all, really. You can't look at it from Google Maps. It's one of the only courses where you have to wear your race bib on the bike. It's a requirement of the Camp Pendleton to be on it, so they can identify you as a racer and not just some
Wait, did,
cyclist
did you
out
say you
there.
can't even look at it? You can't even look at it on Google Maps.
No, you can't even see it on Google Maps. It's blacked out
Wow.
because it's very high value um,
Yeah,
base in the United States. So it's a
and they
huge
let a bunch
race
of
area.
triathletes in there.
Bunch of they listed this one time. I actually did a bike race years and years ago on the camp, but other than that, they don't really let anybody on Camp Pendleton. So hopefully
Wow.
this recon session, this conquer the course, helps you guys do a little bit of recon. We were sharing this on YouTube for this one too, so we're going to show some course maps, give you some detailed breakdown of the course as we get through it. But like we said on the last episode, we're not going to waste time with the build up, all the pre-race check-in, all the pre-race meeting. We're just going to get to the nuts and bolts of the race.
Mm.
So the race this year, typically what they've tried to do the last few years is start the race on the ocean side. Ocean side is where the race is. They
Oceanside.
start it
Right.
on the ocean side on the beach, and you
That's
swim
where the name
around.
comes from.
Yeah, right. You swim around into the harbor and finish in the harbor. But that they tried it maybe 5 years in a row and it only worked maybe 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
So they went back to just a straight harbor swim the way it had been years and years and years leading into the last 4 or 5 years. So it's just a harbor swim. So it's kind of cool. The sun's coming up. There's a bunch of big sea lions swimming around in the harbor waiting for us to start.
Wow.
But yeah, it's extremely calm at the start. The water's cold. It's typically 58 to 60 degrees. What is that Celsius? Who knows? 16,
Ooh,
17,
14,
somewhere in there.
15, 16.
40,
Yeah,
15. Yeah,
it's
some
that's not very warm, is it?
it's
That's
it's
pretty
pretty
true.
cold,
Yeah.
but here's the deal. I feel like a lot of athletes overthink how cold the water is. If you just get in and get moving, it does
Mm,
not affect you as bad as you think it's going to affect you because the water is pretty calm. You can swim
mm.
pretty hard in the water. The heart rate gets up real quick. You have your wetsuit on. So if you're an athlete who's stressing out, oh my God, it's going to be 58 degrees, 60 degrees, I'm not going to be ready for this. Like I said, I'm pretty susceptible to cold in my fingers and my toes, and I've never had an issue in water like this. There's no warm up, Rob. So in a race
Yeah.
where there's no warm up, you just stand in line waiting for your rolling start to come. What would you suggest these athletes do when they're waiting to start?
It's like, I mean, dryland warm up's the only option. So, a light jog beforehand, get things moving. Then maybe you can even do some, if you've got swim cords handy, you can do, or some TheraBand work. You can do some stuff to just warm up the shoulders a little bit, or even some press ups, or just arm swings, getting some rotation going in the body.
Yeah,
Um,
just keep moving. Get that wetsuit
yeah.
all the way up. Put it on. Get your hat on. Get your goggles on, and get moving so you can get a little sweat going. Get that core temperature up a little bit. So then when you get in and you get moving, it's not a total shock to the system going from 0 to 100 in a
What's
second,
the
right?
air temperature
Air
typically?
temperature will be in the, it's typically actually a little humid out there, surprisingly, but we're going to be in the high 50s, low 60s air temperature wise. But it's
Okay.
never been an issue. It's never overly cold at the start of this race. It's like they get this
Mm,
marine layer and it traps in some of the warmer air. So you don't need to go to the race totally bogged down and, down coats and all that kind of stuff, mittens
mm,
and everything, because it actually is pretty decent leading up until that sun comes up because it's pretty dark pretty late. Right when the sun comes up
yeah.
is when the race gets going. So get moving. You guys stand in line for a long time. Many of you will. It's a long, very narrow chute leading to the start of the race. So get moving, get that core temperature up, and yeah, hit that swim from the start. Because as soon as you start, you cross that timing chip, and your race has begun.
Mm. It looks like there's a few turns in this course.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna do on the YouTube video here, I'm gonna bring up the swim course so you guys can see what we're talking about. Because what happens is you shoot out from the start shoot, and you make a quick left hand turn, maybe 150 yards out, 150, 170, 100, whatever, 125 meters out. You make a quick left hand turn, and then you have a pretty much straight straight drag out to a couple small turns, a little more. What was that? Would you say obtuse angles there, Rob?
Yeah.
So not very
Yeah, we'll go with
tight
that. Yeah.
turns. It's just kind of like you have to stay on the
Yeah.
right hand side of the turn buoys, the red turn buoys, but they're very gentle turns as you go out to that first major turnaround all the way at the far end of the course. Now, like I said, the water's cold. You can get the body moving, get your kick going. There's plenty of people around you. The cold has never affected me. The water is calm all the way out. If you look at the course map that we're looking at, Rob, you'll see one arrow, two arrows. You see that third arrow pointing away from the start. Do you see that?
Mm,
Where
mm,
the ocean actually starts to enter into the harbor.
mm,
That's where you're going to find some chop, some swell. Nothing's breaking, but you're going to find a little more turbulent conditions when you get out to the farther turn area. When they feel a little more turbulence in the water, Rob, how would you suggest athletes deal with a little more chop, a little more swell as they feel it picking up at the far turn?
yeah, it's a funny one. I tend to not fight the waves too much, and you sort of let yourself get moved around a little bit. But as long as you're sighting frequently enough and not sighting at the dip of the wave, you're sighting at the crest, so you can actually pick out the next buoy or pick out the people in front of you. But I've always found that, if you start punching into the waves and sort of really pinning it, that's almost too disruptive and it can be quite slow. Whereas if you just let the water move you around, it's a bit like riding in wind. You just let the wind move you. You don't fight it.
Exactly, and
It's
it's
sort
not
of
choppy to the
gentle.
point. Not choppy to the point where it's like slapping you in the face. It's exactly like you're talking about. It's like up and
Mm,
down and up and down. So if you just kind of roll with it, you're going to be in good shape. Now, because you've taken two turns that were very gentle left-hand turns, when you get to that first 90-degree turn at the far end of the course, you gotta think I'm turning too much, right? Because if you
mm,
don't turn enough, then you're gonna be shooting out into the open ocean, and that's not what we want. So
mm,
try and find feet that have already made the turn. Look at those feet and get right back onto those feet. Don't let yourself take too wide of a turn because seen it done at the far end of this course that athletes aren't they're not used to turning that sharp because the first couple turns are pretty easy. They don't turn enough, and then all of a sudden they're going way off course, which leads to added yardage. So make sure you're taking those 90-degree turns and you're actually turning pretty sharp on those buoys because it's a wide open area out there. If you could get off course real quick and you might stay off course for a good amount of time, which is adding yardage to your swim.
Tell me, does tide come into like is it an outgoing tide or incoming tide when this race is on?
You don't
I'm
really
just
get
looking at
any
it myself.
effect of that. It's just
Okay,
it's been out, it's been in. It just depends where you're at on this point in the course. You're not really feeling any
right.
type of tide at all because there's the breakwater there that kind of cuts you off from any type of
Okay,
tide effect.
yeah.
Um, you're just feeling the effect of that open ocean past the break as you because no matter what, no matter how far out the tide is, you're still going to be past the break, and you're going to just
Mm,
feel the chop of that open ocean. When you make
mm,
that second 90-degree turn, though, that's where the sun comes into play. You're coming right back into the rising sun. So what I
mm,
tend to do on this part of the course is I sight off the breakwater on the right hand side. If you know you're parallel to that breakwater, you know you're heading towards that next turn buoy. Because if you
mm.
look after you make that second 90-degree turn, you have to swim to the next red turn buoy and go to the inside of it, so you can't cut the tangent on the way back
Mm.
into the harbor. So
I can imagine a lot of people will end up drifting too close to that break wall and
yeah, and
having
that's
to
that's
deviate off it.
That's the thing. That's added yardage. So you guys want to make
Yeah.
sure that you're sighting to the right and kind of keeping the same distance that you're seeing every time you sight, so you're not veering towards that break wall, because you have to come back and go make a right hand turn around that turn buoy. That turn buoy used to not be there. You used to be able to cut that tangent, and
Oh
that
no.
means you were swimming less yardage than the actual 2,000 meters of the course, which was pretty nice.
Yeah.
But they put that turn buoy there, so you have to swim around that one, and then there's another one going into that final straightaway. So just make
Mm,
sure you guys are sighting often. Use the land to be a marker. Don't think you need to sight right into that sun, and um, and then once you're in that final drag into the finish, there's a bunch of boats on the right hand side. There's some piers, and you can kind of watch those as you're breathing and kind of check them off one at a time. Okay, I'm by this pier. Let's move on to the next one. I'm by this pier. Let's move on to the next one. You make the final right hand turn in the finish, and you don't stop swimming. You swim all the way to the ramp and swim until your hands touch the ground, because there's no sense in having to trudge through water waist deep when you can actually swim all the way to the finish
mm,
and stand up in ankle deep water. And it's a pretty steep incline out of the water. So just get your feet moving. There's plenty of volunteers there to help you stand up. But once you get out of the water and you make the right hand turn, it's a long run all the way down, because they make everyone run the same distance, Rob. And you got to
mm.
run all the way down the entire length of transition, make a left hand turn, and then come into transition and run all the way back to your bike. So, what do you feel? How do you think these athletes should approach getting out of the water and getting down that long, long straightaway into the transition area?
Oh, it's a tough. What's the surface? Is it? Are you running on grass
Asphalt.
or
Yeah, no, it's asphalt. It's
asphalt?
all asphalt. It's a
Ugh,
parking lot.
I
Yeah.
hate I hate that. Um, yeah, it's just get into a rhythm and just run. Like, I mean, you see a lot of people walking and fluffing around with their wetsuits and stuff, but you just got to get moving. Start getting the blood into the legs, but nothing too fast, nothing too crazy. Keep the heart rate. Try not to let it spike too much. But as you're doing that, just systematically taking your wetsuit down, taking it off your arms down to your waist, and then just going through the processes for transition, knowing exactly what you've got to do to get ready for the bike.
And I mean, you could fall asleep in this transition. It's so long that, I mean, it could take you 10 minutes, right? Because it's like it's so far down, so far back. You got to know, hey, this is part of the race. You got to get through it. Like you said, keep moving, get your legs moving. That heart rate will come down as you get moving, because going from
Mm,
the horizontal swim position to the vertical run position up the ramp, making the quick turn, your heart rate spiked. Keep moving
mm,
forward. Once your heart rate starts to come down a little bit, you can start to take the wetsuit down, but don't dilly dally, guys. This is free time. I don't want you guys to be after the race say, "Oh man, if I would have been 2 minutes faster in transition, I would have PR'd, or I would have been in fifth place." Know that it's a long transition and you don't want to be lulled to sleep because of the length of transition. Get in and get out. And the
mm,
faster you move, the less time you're giving that cold to settle into the body. If you can get on the bike, start getting that core temperature up, get moving, it's less time that you're standing around. And we've all went in a cold tub before, and 20 minutes after you're shivering because that cold just penetrates and gets deep into the bones. You don't want that to
mm,
happen coming out of the water. Get on the bike, get moving, get the core temperature up. I had some questions from athletes. Oh, should I be wearing toe covers? Should I be wearing knee covers? Should I put on my coat? Should I put on my jacket? No, 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 no. It's
mm,
going to be cold for the first couple minutes, But then this course gets really warm as you start to move inland and the sun starts to come up, and you're going to be hating the fact that you put all those layers on 20 miles into the bike ride.
I
So
mean, the forecast temperature is 18 degrees Celsius, which is that's a pretty nice day. That's good weather.
yeah, it's
And like
perfect.
you said, it's quite humid.
It's usually perfect for racing if you're
Mm,
dressed correctly, right? And that means not overdressing because you're scared of the first few minutes on the bike. If you're cold the first few minutes on the bike, that's fine
mm,
because you're going to be warming up really quick. It's it's just that heat that's being contained with all that clothes. If you leave it on, you're just burning yourself up for what is a pretty tough run course.
mm,
So dress accordingly, knowing that you're going to warm up pretty soon. If you need to put on gloves, that's fine, or maybe arm warmers that you can peel down. But don't bring a $200 jacket that you don't want to lose, and then you leave it on the whole time. You end up burning up when you're on that bike course when you get on the Camp Pendleton, and you're just screwing yourself up for the run because you're sweating too much. That core temperature's coming too high, and you're just going to have nothing left when you get out there,
yeah,
and you really got to leave it on the line.
yeah.
So get through
Makes a lot of sense.
so get through transition, get moving, and this is a really we'll talk about the bike course. It's a really interesting bike course, Rob, because
Mm,
you think of a 2,500 feet elevation gain on the bike, and you say that's not that bad, right? For 56 miles, 2,600, 52 feet of elevation gain. It's not that much for 56. Would you agree?
it's uh, that's 900 meters elevation.
Right.
That's quite a
Over
bit.
50, over 56 miles. But here's the deal. I'm going to tell
Yeah.
you something that's going to scare you and cause you not to do this race ever. All that 2,600 feet, 900 meters comes between mile 25 and
Yeah.
mile 43. That is
Yeah.
99% of the elevation gain comes in 18 miles, right?
Yeah.
The rest of
Solid.
these athletes that get on course and for 25 miles, they'll think, oh my God, I am gonna break course records. I am gonna be the fastest I've ever been in my life. It is because it's a screaming fast. You know, you get a couple ups, couple downs, small things, couple stints of headwind, but for the most part, you get a tailwind and it's flat. And you can let it rip for the first 25
Mm.
miles. And then you make the right hand turn into Camp Pendleton. And Rob, it is like you question life, you question sport, you question why the hell did I train? Because there's times in the course, especially around mile uh 35 to 40, approximately 39, where you say, I'm not moving, I am just worthless. Why am I even out here? I'm embarrassing myself, right? But that is
There's some climbing. Yeah.
every single year I go and race this race, I think this exact same thing to myself. And then I hit mile 43 and I get a screaming fast descent back into a flat in the transition. I say, you know what, it's not that bad. So when
Mm.
you get in a spot like this on course, buddy, and you're just grinding away up, 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 up. What should these athletes be telling themselves to help keep a positive spin on everything?
God, well, I mean, hopefully with people that are using or have done the training for this, they sort of understand what their zones are or what their targets will be, power, heart rate, perceived effort, whatever. And I'll be just reminding myself that just be patient, just be patient. You knew it was coming. Jim told me about this. I know I'm no to expect it. I know I'm gonna feel like rubbish, but like you say, there is that relief at the end of it, and just keep things buttoned up. Just keep the plan going. Stick to the zones or the targets that you're expecting to hold, and just it's all about the run, really. I mean, you got to be able to get off the bike in good shape to run, so you don't want to blow yourself to bits and mentally fall apart like you sort of described. This can happen.
I think you said it. Keep it buttoned up. Know your zones. Know where you should be. And if your numbers are telling you what your numbers are telling you, you know you're in the right spot. Whether you're going 4 miles an hour or 40 miles an hour, right? You know exactly where
Mm,
you should be. That being said, is don't let yourself fall in the lull of the climb. I see a lot of athletes, they get into 9 miles into this segment, and their power or their effort where they're supposed to be, whether power, heart rate, perceived effort, goes from an 80% down to a 60%, because they just get
mm,
into this lull of, oh, more climbing, more climbing. I'm going nowhere. I may as well just back it off, feel sorry for myself. And
yeah.
they fall apart. Stay on your effort. Like, don't let yourself fall into that lull. Stay within your numbers, stay on top of where you should be, and get the most out of that performance, right? We want to slow down the least
Mm,
when the course slows down. That doesn't mean pinning it and attacking every hill with everything you have, but it means staying on the numbers and staying within your set out to execute effort.
Mm. I
Don't
also see these little inclines as an opportunity to change position as well. Obviously, you're coming off out of the aero bars, but I might spend some time out of the saddle a little bit. Not pushing any harder as such, but maybe just dropping it into a slightly bigger gear, getting a bit more torque through the cranks, just to change the pressure on the muscles and give yourself a little bit of an altered sort of patterning in your pedal cycle, and then you're getting back into your rhythm again, and that's just enough to sort of mix things up a little bit.
yeah.
So yeah, don't turn into a robot and just dial it, just keep plugging away at it. Just be a bit more dynamic in your riding in this sort of course.
Yeah, you
Is it
guys.
is it similar to the climb that we had on State Highway 5 in Topol World Championships, where it was sort of pitched up towards the end?
Yeah, exactly, right? So like it climbs, and right before you get to the top, it hikes up pretty steep
Yeah,
in that middle climb.
yeah,
Also, something you guys need to be aware of is the point in the course where there is a speed limit, actually 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. I believe it's mile 31. You guys want to check into that. I forget exactly. I should know after 9 times doing it, but it's around mile 31. There's actually a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, which is 40K, right? Right below,
40K. Yeah,
right. You have to keep it below 25 miles an hour. It's a steep descent. It's only about a half mile long. But if you average, they take your speed at the start, they take your speed at the finish, they average how long it took you to go from the start to the finish. And if you're faster than what that average would be at 25 miles an hour, they disqualify you from the whole race. Right? It's a stipulation. In order to use the course, they have to put the speed limit on there. If anybody goes outside of it, goes faster than that speed, they're disqualified from the race. They get no finish time. So
the
pay
military police
attention.
come after you.
They come right after you. MP, they put you right in the brig. So pay
Why
attention to
why
that.
is that? What's significant about that part of the course? They
Someone
have to do
they
that.
call it Dead Man's Corner. Someone died there years ago, and
Mm,
they just don't have a repeat of that. I don't even think it was during a half Ironman. I think it was just some guy
okay.
drove off the road, and yeah,
Uh,
they're just worried about it. It's not technical, nothing. I mean, it's like you've done it a million times, haven't thought about it. It's just this one
yeah.
spot. There's been a bad experience there, and they just don't want to take any chances. So
Yeah,
pay
it's
attention to
I
that.
mean that's and just saying that I know that was an area that Braden Curry got DQ'd on last year, and then it was reinstated because he was able to show on his GPS data that he didn't in fact speed. But it's just one of those things is just don't take the risk. Just if it says 25 mile an hour, 40K an hour, then take it 3K an hour slower than that, just to know that you're not going to
Yeah, it's not going to
um
make or
go
break your
faster.
race. It's such a short segment.
Yeah.
Like, don't get frustrated if someone in front of you is going too slow. Just get through it, and then you can put your foot back on the gas. Once you hit mile 45, you get a nice descent, and then you make a right hand turn, and you head back to the transition for the remaining about 8 miles. 8 miles back. Sorry, I'm talking in miles here. It's Buddy K because we're not over in
Don't
your
worry
side of
about
the pond for this one.
it.
So about the 8 miles, get flat. You could get a headwind in that remaining 8 miles. Last couple years, we had a tailwind, which was pretty nice. So play it by
Mm,
ear. If you get a headwind, make sure you get that cadence up. You stay nice and relaxed. You don't fight it. Take it 1 mile at a time, 1K at a time. If you get the tailwind, throw it in a little bigger gear and push a little bigger gearing as you head into that transition area. So just play it by ear,
mm,
keep a cool head about you, and make sure you stay on top of that nutrition from beginning to end of this ride. I know when I take 16 gels on this 56 miles, Rob, I know I'm going to go run a 115 to 118, right? Because that's what I know. And I'm taking what
mm,
I do, I put 10 to 12 gels in my bottle, then I'll take another 5 to 6 caffeinated Morton gels throughout, right? So I take 10 or I take a pH 300, flow gel, put it in my bottle, I sip on that, and then on course as I'm going through the aid stations, I take the Morton caffeinated gel. So it comes out to about 15, 16 gels. I start with a pH 1500 in my other bottle. I sip on that the entire way because the run course is brutal. I mean, it is up and down and up and down. It's nothing that's so
mm,
steep that you're like, oh my God, I have to walk this, but it's just steady grade up, steady grade down, steady grade up, steady grade down. It's a hard concrete the entire way. And it's humid. It's usually overcast
mm,
and it traps all that moisture in. So you're really sweating and feeling the effects of that humidity on the body as you get through that run course. You guys gotta make sure you stay
mm.
on top of that nutrition throughout the ride. once you're through that bottle of pH 1500, I always take an extra just straight water bottle. And this is something having a lot of my athletes do is drink a little more straight water throughout these races. Rob, do you agree with this?
Mm. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, big fan of that. And it just
why does the water help
refreshes
so
the
much?
mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I mean, we're not looking at hydration here. It's a great cooling effect, and it just rinses out your mouth. You get rid of all that sugary crap that you have when you're taking on so much
Yeah, and it helps all
sports
those
drink.
sugars
Mm.
flow into the bloodstream from the gut. So yeah, make sure you're taking that. But I was speaking to one of my athletes, and we were talking about how he's gonna fuel for the bike, and he was talking he's gonna bring 5 bottles with him on the bike, right? And
Oh,
you think about all that. I mean, how much does one bottle weigh? Times that by 5, and you're hauling all of that up all these hills. Whereas
yeah.
you have an aid station every 15 miles. You shouldn't need to bring that much hydration with you because every extra bottle, sure, it's going to help you stay fueled, but it's also something you got to carry up every single one of these hills. And the first hill, Hell Hill, that you go up on the base it's intense, dude. I mean, it's like
Mm.
10 to 12% for a mile. So you got to remember, you're bringing all that up. Find ways to restock at the aid station so you don't have to carry that much with you on the outside of the bike.
Yeah, such a fan of that, eh? Like just planning ahead, knowing what's coming up, knowing what your requirements will be, and just making sure that if you need to get that bottle in that aid station, then you get that bottle, even if it means stopping.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because obviously that's the point in the race. You don't want to miss that. Hey, what's the road surface like? What are you
It's
looking at here?
all well. So it's a good question because you have asphalt while you're on the base. When you get into
Yeah.
the base, it's all asphalt. It's mainly asphalt street, but you guys have to make sure that you have all your gear secured on the bike because when you take it out within the first couple miles, you go behind their little shopping area, and I mean, it is like a war zone back there. I think they might practice back in the day, they practiced their Afghanistan fighting back there because it was like bombs all over it's like someone set bombs all over the road. You just and there would be drink everywhere, there'd be gels everywhere, there'd be parts of bikes everywhere, and they've never flattened this area. They've never smoothed this area out. They just leave it that way.
Mm,
So make sure everything's tamped down on the bike. And then once you get out, there's actually a hidden runway, plane runway out there that you actually drive, that you ride down, and that's concrete with a crack every 20 meters, right? So
mm,
you hit a crack, boom,
mm,
boom, boom, right? So you make sure that everything on that bike is secure. There's nothing that's going to pop out. If you need to add extra rubber band to a bottle just to make sure, or the bottle stop that we got at
mm,
70.3 Worlds, you can add one of those on. But just make sure everything's tamped down really well so you don't lose it on the bumps throughout the course. Once you get onto the base, everything's fine. Everything's smooth as could be. You don't have to worry about any of that. It's just in that first 20 miles, you're going to hit some areas that are pretty bumpy and could eject some of your nutrition. Also, make sure you're keeping an eye on the road. You're not taking your eye off the road because you hit one of those bumps, you're sweaty, it's humid. There's a chance you could slip off the front end and crash. So just be really
mm.
dialed into where those bumps are. Keep your eye on the road and be paying attention at all times. If anything, you need to slow down, go over the bump, and then get on to the next one.
Is it exposed to the wind? Like you said, there was wind on the coast part, but through the base, you're going to get.
Through the base, you never get wind. It's actually pretty stagnant air. That's why it's so important you guys stay on top of that nutrition because you're not
Mm,
really getting too much wind once you get inland onto the base. First 20 miles, yeah, you'll have most likely a tailwind, hopefully a tailwind going along the coast. Possibly the last 8 miles, you could have a headwind. If we get lucky, we'll have a tailwind coming in
mm,
the last 8 miles. So play that by ear, shift the gearing accordingly. But in that middle section, it's just hunker down and get through that climbing. Do what you have to do. Like Rob said, move around the bike, sit up, get out of the saddle, get in your TT position, just move around, change the cadence around, and take it one pedal stroke at a time, 1 kilometer at a time, and you'll get through it. But it just takes some mental strength, mental perseverance to do it.
yeah.
When you come into T2 at this course, now you'll see the run out right in front of you. It's a straight right, but that's not where athletes get off the bike. They veer you to the right and you actually ride down the little channel that everybody ran down coming out of the water. So there's a bunch
Mm,
of planters there. It's very precarious. It's very tight. There's some extremely tight left hand, right hand turns. So I get my feet out of the out of the shoes and I'm on top of the pedals as I'm going through this area to the dismount line, because you don't have to dismount to the far end of transition. There's a lot of people that'll get off their bike when they see the run out banner, whereas they're not
Mm.
dismounting for 300 meters further. So ride your bike slowly, precariously all the way to the dismount line along the right hand side of transition, but make sure you're taking those turns seriously, because there's some extremely sharp left and right hand turns as you get through that little channel. And take note of it before the race. Say, hey, I know I'm walking this now to the swim start. I'm going to be riding this when I'm getting off the bike. I'm tired. I'm nutritionally deficient. I got to pay attention so I don't wipe out. So, like I said, I take
Mm.
my shoes off out of the, I take my feet out of the shoes and I ride with my feet on top of the pedals through that area. But just make sure you're doing what you have to do to stay safe to that dismount line. And don't get off your bike though before you hit the dismount line, because too many athletes get off too early and then they up running all the way down. And that's a long way to run with your bike through that tight area. So, stay on your bike until they tell you to get off your bike.
Yeah, good advice.
Once you get into the transition area, same thing. It's a long shot back to where your rack is. Get off that bike and get moving, right? Get racked, sit down, put your shoes on, put your socks on, stand up, and get out of transition, right? You already have your race belt on. You put that on before you got on the bike. Get out quickly and get moving. Get those legs moving onto that run course. Any tips on T2 to Rob?
Um, yeah, it's a funny thing, because you generally start the run and you're feeling like absolute crap, but it is one of those things that that 10, 15 minutes into it, that ride has gone and your body doesn't remember it. So it is one of those things when I start the run that I always tell people just to hold back a little bit and don't fight the ground. Just let it flow, let the rhythm go.
Yeah, don't
And
pay
it
attention to
does.
your watch. Don't pay attention to your
Yeah,
watch. Just get
exactly.
moving.
Yeah, let their first 2Ks tick over and then start looking at what pace you're doing and then think about how you're going to execute this run. But yeah, although going back into T2, just what you mentioned there, again, it's that thing of having that system in place and knowing in your mind exactly what you need to take out in that run and what's in your bag, and knowing that you're not going to leave something behind. But don't be mucking around in there. It's the only time in the race that everybody's standing still, so you may as well make sure that you're the one moving forward quickly. Yeah, just if you had a bad ride, don't worry about it. Get on that run,
Well,
flush it out, and get going.
after this run, after that bike course, I'm telling you, everybody thinks they had a bad ride in that middle section. You come out and say, "Oh
Yeah,
my God, I was worthless on there." But then you look at the times afterwards, and you're right there with everybody else, right? So
yeah.
it is what it is. You're out there performing within your ability levels. You're doing what you can do. Get in the T2, get those shoes on. The bike is behind you. Get onto the run. Like you said, get through transition quickly. Get the body moving. And usually, this course usually takes about a mile, mile and a half. What would that be, 2K for you to
Mm,
to
mm.
really start to feel good? Because the first few miles, I'm gonna bring up the run course here on the
Yeah, it's
maps.
an interesting looking course, isn't it?
Yeah, so the first few miles you take it out and it's pretty flat, right? You come out and you run to the pier and you're along the bike path, the
Mm,
oceanfront bike path for the first mile and a half, and then you come up the pier, you come up on top, you drop back down to the bike path, and then once you come back up from the bike path to like the little street area, that's where you get these false flats, right? So if you
mm,
look at around mile 2.3, that's where you start to really to feel the grade, and the grade starts to just come up, 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 right? Then you crest, you come down a little bit, then you go up, 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 right? So when you're getting these false flats, Rob, what do you typically suggest your athletes focus on instead of just thinking, "Oh my God, I'm grinding away. I should be running, I should be running some pace and it's 20 seconds slower than that." What do you have these athletes focus on as opposed to the negativity of maybe not hitting the pace they should be hitting? Where should they be putting their mind?
yeah, well, most of my athletes use a stride run power meter on their shoes, so the power is relative, and on the flat of the hill, uphill, downhill, on the flats, it doesn't make a difference. The power is power. So I've always given them a power target or a range to work to. So if you're going uphill and the power is 270, and that's the average power we had in mind, then you shouldn't be doing 300 watts on those hills. You should be doing maybe 275, just allowing a little bit more, because on the downhill, that 270 on the flat will probably be 260 on the down. So it is a little bit like a power meter on a bike. So if you've got that and you have that plan in mind, then you know that you're holding back to that correct effort. But if you haven't got the benefit of that, then just working on your heart rate as well is a great thing to know, that if you start peaking your heart rate a little bit on those little spiky climbs, then that's obviously putting too much into too high intensity. Or just a simple thing of just listening to your feet, and shortening your stride and keeping that cadence similar to on the hills that you've done on the flats. Just tick yourself up the hill, get up the top, and then as you get over the top of the hill and you can stretch out a little bit on the downhill, just get yourself back into that rhythm of comfortable running pace. And it almost should, you just need to make the course feel like it's flat just by altering your mindset, altering your stride, altering your intensity.
Yeah, and majority of the run is on concrete. So between the concrete, the false flats, the humidity that's probably up at this time, and if it's not humid, it's blazing exposed sun. It's a very depleting course, right? So like Rob
Mm,
said, make sure you guys really rein in the effort, stay within yourself, know your pacing, know your feel, know kind of what you're shooting for going in and how that feel should be. No matter what the pace is telling you, you're at that effort that you should be at to knock it off one segment at a time. Now it's like I said, it's all concrete, right? So a course like this is really beats down the legs. So the more you
mm,
can focus on the technique of your run, the better off you're going to be in the back half. It's a two loop course, right? So first loop, you're fine, right? But if your body's taking that beating and you're compensating as you get more and more fatigued, you're losing that run form, that good posture. You're not driving your knees. You're not engaging those glutes the way you should. You're letting those super shoes push all that weight forward, put the stress on the quads, the hip flexors, the knees. That second loop is going to be pretty miserable. You'll probably be cramping. You'll be extremely fatigued in those smaller muscle areas. So I always stress to my athletes, make sure you think about your posture, think about how you're holding your body nice and strong, nice and upright. You're driving your knees under the body with every stride, getting those glutes engaged, and keeping that focus from the first mile all the way to the last mile. Because if you're not doing that, maybe your knees falling in, maybe you're not keeping that core nice and taut with that good posture, the stress is going elsewhere. It's going into the IT bands, it's going into the adductors, it's going into the calf, it's going into the hip flexor. And you're going to find, because those are so depleted and beaten down from a tough bike course and extremely wear and tear run course, the last 4 or 5 miles, last
mm,
10K is going to be extremely rough. So always come back to
mm.
the technique while you're dialing into what effort you should be holding.
The other thing I always think about is, it'd be unrealistic to think that you could do a negative split on a course like this. The second lap faster than the first lap, but it's not necessarily a negative split in time. But you want to think that you can do a negative split in terms of effort. So your second half, you should be able to lift your effort and sort of bring it home strong. Obviously, you may not be going as fast as you were because general fatigue is going to limit how fast you can run. But if you're feeling like you're pushing stronger than you were in the first lap, then that's going to make you feel better, and you'll feel more positive, and you'll see people that you're coming up against, and you'll be able to pass them, and you push on to the next person. And everybody's going slow by then. The humidity's kicked in, the heat's up, everybody's tired. But if you still feel like you're pushing it on and you're still pounding away, then that's what's going to make you get to that finish line and feel better about it, rather than falling apart and you know having to sort of hobble your way to the finish. So keep that in mind as well.
And the nice thing is that the finish is at the pier, so you don't have to go all the way back to transition where the turnaround was. So you finish at the pier, you're done a little sooner than going all the way back to
Nice.
that turnaround like most races. But you got to stay on the nutrition, right? Maybe go a little more liquid as you get onto the run. If you've done it right, you got in the right calories, the right
Mm.
carbohydrates, the right gel on the bike. Maybe you can go a little more liquid on the run. Stay on top of your salt, stay on top of your sodium. If you need to carry a couple extra sodium pills with you, do it, because it is, like I said, the air becomes very stagnant on the run, so you're really blowing through those electrolytes. And if you need that Coke as you get through to get a little extra jet fuel, add a Coke into the aid station feedings. So
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Like, I always think of the bike as the place where you get your fueling, because it's easier to digest when you're cycling, and it's you can carry a lot more stuff with you, or you can have access to more stuff. But the bike, you do your fueling, the running, you do your cooling and your hydration, and just keeping yourself topped up.
yeah.
If you're on the back foot and having to shove down plenty of carbs and whatnot on the run, then you've kind of probably mucked up the bike a little bit. You shouldn't be at that point where you're having to chug down 3 or 4 gels in a short space of time to try and get back on foot front foot.
That's right, buddy. That's right. All right. What do we miss? What did I miss on this course?
That's pretty good, eh? Like, I want to know what's the after race party scene like. Like, where do
Oh
people go
yeah,
after this thing?
so when I first started racing this back in 2005, you didn't want to go anywhere in Oceanside, right? You got in and you got out of there. Now there's craft breweries, there's great places
Oh,
to eat, there's high-end hotels right there. It's a great place to hang out. Every bar is filled, every restaurant is filled afterwards. So it's an awesome post race scene. Everybody's celebrating their accomplishments, their victories, and now the award ceremony is at 4 p.m. on a Saturday. Everybody sticks around, has a blast, and goes to it
mm,
half in the bag. So a lot of fun times after the race. So make sure you stick around. And they have a really open area where all the athletes come in and everybody sticks around. I mean, there's thousands of athletes just hanging out at that post athlete food. So
mm.
one thing you guys want to do post is bring sunscreen because it is by that time the sun is out beating down on you and there's a bunch of lobsters leaving a couple hours later. So if you don't wear sunscreen during the race, bring sunscreen for after the race because that post athlete or that athlete area where the food is, it's a blast. It's an awesome time, but that sun is scorching. So
It's all
bring
about the
that
planning, isn't it? It's all about the
exactly
planning.
planning for it. So
Um, and tell me, so Lionel's the king of Oceanside, really, isn't he? Is he going to win this one again?
we'll see how he comes out. He had a broken hip a couple months ago, so let's see if that's
Mm,
fully recovered. But he knows the course well. He knows where to press. He knows. I always say, if you know the course like the back of your hand, the way he knows the course. I mean, I went into this race so many times unprepared, just because of this or that happened in the preseason. But
mm,
because I know the course so well, I know where to push, where to back off, where to get my nutrition in, and that leads to a pretty successful day. Him knowing as well as he knows it, he's gonna have a great day. It's just does he have that
mm.
top end to compete with how fast these guys are getting now? So
I
knowledge and
reckon.
experience have a ton to do with it.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's good for it. We'll look
Yeah.
forward to seeing.
Yeah. It should be fun times. I'm sure we'll be talking during the race. Remember, you guys, if you want to ask questions on the YouTube video, shoot them on the comments section. If you want to ask questions on Instagram, Conquer the Course Instagram page, write them on there, and we will get them answered for you guys. But Rob,
How
always a
many of
pleasure.
your own athletes are there? How many of your Tower 26
We're
group are
about
there?
35 Tower 26 athletes there this year.
Wow,
And I am
that's
not
awesome.
racing. I will not be racing this year. So saving it up for my late season racing.
You'll be the man on the sideline.
That's right. Be yelling at everybody. So Rob, it's always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks for
It
joining
is,
me.
mate. I
All right,
really
man.
appreciate it.
All
And
right, guys.
yeah,
Hey,
good luck,
what's our next
everybody.
episode? Do we have any idea? What are we doing?
Ooh, come at us with the ideas, people. What do you
Yeah.
want to know?
You want
We can talk
anything?
about it. I mean, we can talk. We can do one on Challenge Roth. I've done that a few times, and there's plenty of good races coming up. So
We'll do
maybe
Roth. We'll
we'll
do
look at that.
some comments from the peanut gallery. Let's see what you guys want to hear
Yeah,
about. So write
yeah.
us, let us know, and we'll get those on the docket. So Rob, you always a pleasure, buddy.
Good luck, everybody.
All right, Rob Dallimore, Jim Lubinski, the Conquer the Course podcast. Bye, guys.